All right, we're gonna give this a try on YouTube then.
Okay.
So I'll have to. Well, this looks like it's gotten farther than Facebook did.
Yeah, it says meeting is now streaming live on YouTube. Yep.
Let's see. And well, all right.
Awesome. And have you shared the post?
Try on YouTube then.
Okay.
So I'll have to. How's that? You still hear me? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So yep. All right. So I'm watching the stream now on YouTube. So which kind of stinks, but what I guess I can do is share from the page. Try to get so post to Facebook. Let me see. Tag friends. Let's see this. All right. So I just tagged you.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I got a new subscriber. I just saw. I just gotta watch because now obviously there's a delay here. So okay. All right, we're recording. It's feeling good. You can hear me. Yeah. So it's. But I can see it. So cool. Yeah. Everyone, yeah. I was like, where are you at? So. All right, so.
All right, Paul, I'm good to go, brother. I shared it on all of my pages as well.
Cool. Cool. Okay.
Sweet.
All right. Are we actually doing this?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. So how's the sound?
Good.
Cool. All right. All right. So you gotta love technology. Holy moly. So, all right. Let's see who we got. Yeah, I got folks
texting, and it's like, hey,
Yeah.
late. And it's like, yeah, hey, this is musicians, right? This shows never go on time, right?
That's right. A little anticipation is okay. Suspense, rather.
Oh man. Cool. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Let's go. Let's do share also to the page. Yeah, I appreciate the hanging in there. So I know the technical difficulties here. So.
Oh, no, no problem at all.
All right, let's see what we got. Cool. All right. So we'll see. Like I said, Scott's checking on things, so we'll see where we're at as far as hopefully got a few folks coming along. Yeah, I think that's one thing I've been trying to look at. Like I said, figuring out the right technology, because there's the OBS, open OBS or broadcasting system. You can get real creative and overlays and graphics and bring in cameras, and it's all a matter of, I guess, the level of improving, and I still haven't quite figured out that aspect of trying to go streaming and recording at the same time. And I guess if I solely did just nothing but a streaming show, and I didn't worry about, it was one take, here you go, and not worry about like recording the audio for a podcast, then I would probably do that. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I guess if we're live out there on YouTube, we're good, Scott. We're on the interwebs. Cool, very cool. So first, Ryan, let me give you a little. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself here.
Sure, absolutely. What's up, everybody? My name's Ryan Tremblay, and I'm from Rhode Island originally, and actually have plans to move to Nashville, Tennessee once I can. Coronavirus has sort of affected those plans. I was actually supposed to be moving to Nashville this weekend, Paul, and I was going to use Jim Riley's Drum Dojo weekend as the perfect excuse to do so, and I was all planned, ready to. I had that all planned, ready to move this very weekend, and he was going to be hosting the camp Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So today would have been the second day of the camp. But it's great to be here. I'm a husband and father of triplets. So my wife and 3 sons, they appreciate me being home, I'm sure, very much, as opposed to just, having left for Nashville. And I'm very grateful that I didn't leave before this outbreak, because all of Music City, and certainly the music scene in New England and Rhode Island, everywhere, is shut down. So I have been transitioning most recently from my role as a drummer, which I was about to go down to Nashville and sort of focus on 110%. I've been now flipping back the other way to being a Christian recording artist, which is something that I've been doing for about the past decade or so. So I started out on drum set at the age of 2, so I've been playing for drums for 30 years now, but I got into Christian music and writing original Christian music when I was 21. So yeah, even though I had my own plans of wanting to go ahead and pursue drumming full-time in Nashville, it seemed like the Lord had other plans in store. He's like, why don't you focus on honoring me through your singing and songwriting and performing before you just go jump in the saddle, apparently, and play drums for some people. So I'm really happy, that I'm able to now take this season to grow my brand as a Christian artist, and doing a lot of that on social media, and yeah, but I can't wait to get to Nashville, Paul, get back there, to start, either my own project or playing for others. I think it'll be a combination of both, maybe to start. But yeah, I've shared the stage with Doc Severinsen, Bob Mincer,
Wow.
Jeff Coffin from the Dave Matthews Band, Wycliffe Gordon, Sean Jones, Byron Stripling. These are some of the more well-known jazz artists that I've played with here in Rhode Island. But I think that I also have done some touring with the Ultrasonic Rock Orchestra out of Boston. I did some touring with them when I was 16. For 4 years, I was with them, so from the ages of 16 to 20. So that's always been a part of my my story, so to speak. This sort of reality of loving the drums so much to always want to commit to them and get better at them, but then love music all in all enough to just jump in as a front man and become a band leader and express myself through songs. So yeah, kind of a long introduction, but you know, I'm loving life right now despite the COVID-19 crisis, and I'm happy to be on the show today, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, and I'm so glad that we met, and like you mentioned, through Jim Riley's drum dojo.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm sure, right? Because you've met Jim before in other clinics, and I think up in Rhode Island, the New England area, right? And then you did a previous class, or was that the first dojo that you did?
So that was the first drum dojo weekend that I had attended, but when I was in town in October in Nashville, I attended Rich Redmond's Drummers Weekend, which was a blast.
Okay.
It was two days, October 19th and 20th of 2019. And when I was at Rich Redmond's camp, Jim Riley said, "Hey, Ryan," well, he actually said to the whole group, if you want to get into the Nashville number system, you'll definitely want to check out Jim Riley's book. So I just took that as, you're going to want to get with Jim Riley at some point to really understand the Nashville number system. Not only did I buy the book, but I just, dove in that week with him. And because I stayed out there for a week, I didn't want to just stay at Rich. I didn't want to fly in just for Rich Redmond's weekend. I wanted to fly in for the weekend and then get a taste of what it would be like, to be there for an extended amount of time. So I stayed there for a little over a week and scheduled a lesson with Jim before he headed out to be with Rascal Flatts. I think he was playing in Canada at that time. And it was great. We had an hour lesson at 9 a.m. in the morning. We went through the Nashville number system. We played through a couple of tracks in the book. And then he said, I have my drum dojo weekend coming up if you're interested. And I said, absolutely, like sign me up, and that's where we met, Paul. So cool. So cool.
Yeah, no, I think so we were both first timers, and I didn't know, really what to expect, to be honest. And that was the first time I was in Nashville, and I'd seen the class or the dojo sessions get posted, come up all the time, and my day job, my full-time job can be a little challenging at times here, where I could take time off, but then again, there are other things that can impact that timing, like natural, Mother Nature kind of stuff. So
yeah.
So I'm sure I know it was odd that when I was asking Jim probably some questions when I signed up, hey, what happens if I got to cancel? And it was like the first of I work for a utility in Florida, so hurricane season ends November 30th.
Okay.
So even though Mother Nature doesn't really care about calendars, right? I was really nervous about, first week of December, yeah, we should be fine, but there's other things that can happen. So, so I'm sure that's why, I was just more concerned about what happens if I have to cancel, if that comes to that, hoping it wouldn't, but
Yeah.
So then I know you probably may recall the whole story about us, the whole my name, my last name, what am I going as, my incognito name? Why do I have different names on social media?
That's so
So
funny.
yeah, so I think sometimes he still, I think I got to send him a friend request. He hasn't accepted it. It's probably because he doesn't know who Paul Robertson is. He's like, I know this other guy that was in Joe, but I don't know who this Paul Robertson.
That's so funny. I love it.
So
I love it.
yeah,
It's your stage name.
yeah, my stage name. So, but yeah, that was a great weekend. I was ready to. I had told my wife that if I didn't run out of money, I would have stayed here longer. But I had a total blast. Took everything in for that weekend. But
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's great. Like I said, I think if anyone who's thinking about doing really commitment to drums, taking one of Jim's weekend sessions is definitely super nice guy, very like the consummate teacher, and
Yeah.
and again, I think there was for me, being honest, I was a little there was little parts of this intimidate, where it's pushing, then that's kind of what a teacher wants to do, is push you to try, work, or and not just phone it in or whatever. So yeah, I had a blast.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the beautiful part about Jim's approach to teaching is that, as sort of corny as this may sound, he has a father's heart. And
Yeah.
so when you're in the room with him, you really feel as though everything's coming out of love. He's like the good shepherd. You know what I mean? He's like, all right, you guys are my flock, and I am going to shepherd you guys into greener pastures in your drumming life. And so that's one thing. And the other thing is I think he can, because he is such a consummate musician, not just a drummer, but a musician, he's able to, he's a humble guy, but he's able to humble most people, I would imagine, who walk into to that studio. And I know that that's not the point, to humble people, but you will find yourself as a student of Jim's being humbled, I think, because no matter what you bring in there, he can speak to you from beginner to super advanced levels. And he's brilliant at just knowing where you are in that journey, and he'll give you that appropriate push for where you are. And I think there is sort of this unspoken yet spoken thing, as we saw of in the camp, of like, okay, especially for the one gentleman who happened to be in Nashville already, he had said the words, listen, you're in Nashville now. Like, there's a way to be approaching music. And so for me, or for anybody, I think it's extremely valuable to go before you move, and just get around that energy. It was actually a good friend of mine who encouraged me back in September of last year to move to Nashville. She said, Ryan, I think you really, have to move. How are you listening to the music coming out of Nashville? I mean, it's the place to be as a Christian artist, as a drummer. It's just so good for you. And I was like, that's amazing. But I didn't just pack up my bags and leave. My approach was, let me pick the brains of people who don't mind having their brains picked.
Right.
And Rich Redmond was the first person I thought of. And then so I went down for Rich Redmond's camp, planned to stay there a week, again, just so I could have that experience. And then Rich recommended Jim, and Jim's the same way. He doesn't mind you picking his brain. He enjoys that. And I just think that it's, super valuable, super important. If you're a hobbyist who wants to go and enjoy that experience, that's fine. But yeah, absolutely. If you're a hobbyist who wants to go down, but I would say that Jim, as you could agree, Paul, right? He challenges you to look beyond your hobbiness, your hobby definition of yourself, and almost pushes the limits, pushes you out of that because even that could be a roadblock to the success that you're capable of behind the kit. If and I'm not just talking about you, Paul, but just anybody, if anybody thinks of themselves as a hobbyist, well, then maybe that's not giving yourself permission to take that next step and that next step and that next step. And I think Jim is one of those encouraging guys who will be like, listen, you know, I see where you are and you sound really great. And I know I can get you to that next level. So again, he's the good shepherd. He can get you to greener pastures. And so yeah, that was my approach, even as a more advanced player to getting into the Nashville scene. And I say more advanced player, but again, I was humbled going in there and I just, but motivated at the same time, right? And so I think all of this is to say that it's super important to go experience Nashville, maybe somehow first through the retreats that they have, like a singing retreat or a drumming retreat or an artist retreat, or that's kind of what I felt like we did. That Drummers Weekend was sort of like a retreat, you know, and so I think it's important to go do that, and then that way when you get there, you know, maybe you're not getting the lecture of like, you're in Nashville now, you got to do it this way, or you got to do it that way. It's better to see what Nashville is first, maybe, and start to, and then maybe take that home, practice a bit, and then move. You know, I don't know.
No, I think that's you know, there's so much obviously history, and there's obviously people end up in Nashville in many ways and means.
Right.
And I think what's you know, I tell folks, and then again, it's not a knock against anything, but you know, I wouldn't consider myself a country guy, and I've kind of maybe more later, you know, on I've gotten a little bit more into country actually. You know, so my partner in crime here, handling the bartending duties and others. Scott, you know, he's got a great country voice, and you know, I always say is when he's ready to retire, we're gonna go start a Chris Stapleton tribute band.
Nice.
So yeah, but I don't know if I can get him on. He's probably not gonna go on camera and do anything, but yeah, things like that. It was like I started getting a little bit exposure, and it's like here. I told folks, hey, I'm going to Nashville doing this drum weekend thing with Rascal Flatts Drummer, one of the biggest country bands in the world. But then, like you said, when you go to Nashville, one thing that hit me more so, I think, is I saw everything as everyone was musicians first, you know, you know, and maybe bands second and so forth. And here's, you know, guys and girls who may be in some of these big name country acts that have been with these bands for many, like Jim, right? 20 years, the original drummer for, you know, and, but, you know, he's got his own thing. He's got a, you know, but it's not like when I look at it like rock and roll, let's say as an example, that everyone is kind of out front, you know, and everyone is a face, you know, everyone's almost maybe a household name, depending on the band, but and then that's, like I said, not to knock, you know, I think there's some folks that you've got to be in certain circles to know who Jim Riley is too, right?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, as Jim mentions, he's sort of drummer famous. Yeah, as he likes to say.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So very cool. So you mentioned Ryan. You talked a little bit. You started off in. You know, there are a couple things I want to go through your intro. I think you hit a lot of things I wanted to mention. Was
cool.
You talked about you started drumming when you were 2. That was one of the questions. Like, how does everybody get into drums, right? You know, whether it's the pots, pans, I think I mentioned in the previous podcast, or maybe an older sibling or some other influence. So, how did you get into drums?
Yeah, you know, so I think it was the pots and pans first, and then my mom and dad were brave enough to, or Santa was kind enough to get me a drum kit, a little Mickey Mouse drum set. When I was 2 years old. So I broke through that probably within the first couple of days. I don't remember, but or maybe I do remember. I don't know. I feel like a part of me does remember just, you know, that kit and how exciting it was. But but yeah, I broke through it, and then eventually my dad brought home an old Stewart drum set, a 4-piece kit. And that was my drum set for the longest time. And the cool thing is that my dad actually started as a drummer first, and then became a singer and an entertainer who plays guitar. And so my dad was doing like the general business circuit already, like before I was born. So I was, in a sense, born into, a musical family, and it was just a matter of time before I wanted to start gigging out with my dad and playing with him. So at around 5 or 6 years old, I took that Stewart drum kit and started, lugging it with my dad's help, of course, to nursing homes locally around the state of Rhode Island, and then, elementary school. When I was, by the time I was in, third grade, I feel like I was known as a drummer, and I remember bringing in my drumsticks for my third grade class and for show and tell, and the teacher was all encouraging of my, pursuits and such. And the talent shows, I always did those with my dad, and which was awesome. And by the time I was 10, my dad's drummer, actually, he had had a stroke, and that was when I actually just became my dad's drummer. He never really called another drummer, I think, after that point. There may have been a couple of instances where he did if the gig was too late and I was like maybe falling asleep behind the kit, but for the most part, I was my dad's drummer, and that was really cool because I got to see what the gigging world was like firsthand from someone who cared about me greatly.
Right.
Which is my dad, and to this day, he called me last night after my Facebook live stream and wanted to talk to me, and it's just he's that sort of caring person. And so middle school started auditioning for or taking part in the jazz band, and auditioned for All-State in 8th grade. I made number one. I placed number one in the state. I know it's a small state, but it was still a big honor. And and I continued to place first in the state throughout high school as well. Three out of the 4 years I was voted number one, and that was great for me. Certainly to have that experience to play with the other best jazz musicians around the state of Rhode Island. And what was kind of neat was my dad went from like GB, general business, weddings, parties, anniversaries, to blues and blues jams as well by the time I was a teenager. So I was sort of getting this wedding band experience, sort of like friendly oldies that 50s, 60s stuff you would play
Right.
for the nursing home circuit maybe. But then this sort of real life club experience, which my dad would take me into the clubs, and now I'd be listening to the guys playing shuffles and 12/8 blues, slow blues. And what was neat was that my dad formed a blues band, and he recruited a bass player and a keyboard player eventually. That would those two people would play huge roles in my life because I eventually started to tour with that rock band that I had mentioned.
Yep.
That was the bass player in my dad's band who hooked me up with that rock gig out of Boston. He said, "Hey man, do you play percussion too?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And he's like, "All right, come audition." And I auditioned and I got the gig. So we played at the Berkeley Performance Center, which was amazing, a sold-out crowd. We played at the Wilbur Theater. We did like an 8-week run there. We played at the Erie Playhouse in Erie, Pennsylvania. The biggest gig we did was for IBM. It was 7,000 people actually in Florida. The IBM.
Okay. In Boca.
Yeah. And so I think it was Lotus Sphere, maybe what they called it back in 2007 when we played. But it was an amazing experience, And so there I was, a younger guy getting all this experience, and then it came time to pick a college, and I auditioned at University of Miami in Florida on drum set, University of North Texas, where Jim went, and Rich Redmond, and Berkeley, Rhode Island College, and University of Rhode Island.
Wow.
And my first choice was University of Miami because I loved the way I was treated by Steve Rucker. He's just such an amazing human being and such a positive, encouraging person. He loved my playing, and no doubt that's the place I wanted to go. I was musically accepted to the university and then academically rejected. So even though Steve Rucker put me at the top of his list, I could not go to the college. I even appealed the decision, and they were just like, "Yeah, I know you got to reapply." So I'm like, "Okay, this is sort of a step back." I felt at the time, but what I did is I went to Rhode Island College during that first year, and I got enough credits to transfer in to Miami. And when I went to go transfer in as a sophomore, they gave me, I think it was a $15,000 scholarship, but it cost $30,000 to go there. So my hope was actually to get a full ride.
Yeah, U of M is not very cheap.
From college. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's an expensive school. And as a musician, you know, I couldn't, I was doing the math, you know, and I was like, okay, it's going to be $60,000 of debt by the time I graduate in 4 years. And I actually asked Steve Rucker some hard questions. I'm like, okay, if I accept this scholarship, can you guarantee that I'm going to get a gig? Can you guarantee that I'm going to be able to, you know, is this a guaranteed thing? And I forget exactly what his responses were, but I mean, I think that his point was, at the end of the day, if you really want to do something, you have to go for it 100%, you know, and this is a way to do that if you want to do it. And so I signed the accepted letter, and then my sister actually got a hold of me, and she's like, "Listen, Ryan," she's like, "you have so many contacts going for you right now here in New England. You're already gigging. You're already doing it. You know, you don't need a university to make you who you want to be, who you're going to be." And she's like, "There's going to be a lot of distractions. There's a lot of partying you're going to be around. There's just a lot of stuff that you, as a person who you are, it's not going to jive with you." And she was 5 years older than me, so she could kind of see that. She had already been to college, and I was just getting into it. But so I listened to her. I took her advice, and I rejected the scholarship, and I stayed at Rhode Island College, where I started off as a music education major and quickly realized that I did not want to be in a classroom the rest of my life teaching kids how to play clarinet and flute and trumpet and trombone and trying to get them to sound the best they could. Like, it was fun to be a part of public school and education and come up in the system. I'm very grateful for my education, but no way did I want to just limit my existence professionally to being in the classroom after I had just gotten out for 12 years doing that. It just didn't make any sense to me. And because my dream was ultimately to play in arenas and stadiums and the largest venues possible. And just like Jim, then get into education when I can actually teach the next generation something that I've gained from chasing my dream, you know, as opposed to maybe you know, just being in the classroom. But yeah, sorry.
I think that's a really great story, not story, but how you got to where you got to, some of the tough decisions. And I think nowadays, it's very challenging now to be a one stream as far as a musician, right? You've got to have lots, whether it's the money. Everyone always starts off with money, it's the love and so forth. But again, you still got to, pay the bills and so forth. But you got to do a little bit of this now. You got to do a little bit of this. You got a little bit of this, and now even, it's no longer, people, bands or musicians get knocked anymore for doing commercials or selling their songs, because this is the new way that you have to. You're not making really solely a living just on music alone anymore. I mean, maybe there's it does happen, number one hits and it takes off and so forth. So, but now it's interesting because you do a little bit, you've got your, we'll talk a little bit more details about your music that you do perform. You do some teaching. We'll talk a little bit how that's going.
Yeah.
And then too, is your long-term career too. So you've got a couple different things you're keeping your irons in the fire. And then again, that's what I took away from, like I said, about Nashville was like, everyone's, like we said, everyone's hustling. You got to keep your irons in the fire. And like I said, seeing, just as, again, the one example there with Jim is he's a professional drummer in a major band. But he's doing a little bit of this, doing a little bit of this, and doing a little bit of this. And Ryan, I don't know, it was just very after the announcement that Rascal Flatts was going to retire, right? And after this year, it was weird. There was something he said, like, yeah, you never know, or, things happen, they decide. It was almost like there was a statement that was made or comment that was made that I thought at the time was very interesting that it was said. It almost foreshadowed, with Rascal Flatts, kind of, we're just going to be kind of calling it, quits or whatever you want to call it, taking a break. And, but yeah, then again, here's his, 20-year thing is, like he said, this could end at any time. And that's his mainstay. But you got to keep your brands going. You got to keep your streams going. You got to keep your hustling. You just can't be, I guess maybe in stocks, it's called diversifying, right? So this is great that you've got your, the many different things that keep you busy, right? It's not just.
Totally. And it's so funny, Paul, because like when you're coming up as a musician and you're fascinated by an instrument like the drums, I think you just sort of think, I want to do that. And that's the childlike beauty in chasing a dream, to an extent. You just say, I want to do that one thing, but what you realize as you get older is that, the person who was behind the kit is and was a human, and while that person was maybe putting on a great show, that person has a professional existence that because he or she is on that drum kit, it gives them a vantage point. And I guess what I experienced, which sort of getting back to right where I left off, which is perfect, Paul. I experienced something with that rock opera after being, a drummer and a percussionist for them for 4 years. They went to go make a leap into the casino world, playing in Vegas, in Canada, but because of that, they had to make some cuts. And I was one of the people that they cut. I was a percussionist first, and then the producer of the show was the drummer. So there was no way on earth that I was going to upstage.
Right, yeah.
The drummer.
Somebody's making decisions, right?
I mean, so that was a great experience for me to have as a 20-year-old person, because I realized, just like Jim and my teacher in college, my drum teacher in college, who played for a successful band leader for like 13 years, that, when you're the drummer, you're not necessarily the boss. Even though you are technically leading the band with everything that you're the foundation for the band, you're not always the leader. And just like that, you can sort of lose your job. I guess. And that's sort of what happened to me early on. So what was unique was that happened in August, and right around October, that's when I began collaborating with the keyboardist I mentioned in my dad's band, who was a Grammy-nominated songwriter.
Oh, wow.
So Steve Gadd and Joe Sample and Marcus Miller, and most importantly, perhaps Al Jarreau, are some of the musicians who recorded the keyboardist. His name was Todd. Todd Urbanus. He was the keyboard player in my dad's band, and those are some of the musicians who recorded his song called Wait for the Magic. The way my dad and I met Todd was we just went to a blues jam in Rhode Island one day, like in Manville, Rhode Island, which is like in the middle of nowhere, and Todd happened to show up to the blues jam. He was in from Los Angeles, and my dad, who has a great ear and personality, just introduced himself to Todd and said, "Hey, I have a band. Would you like to be a part of it?" And so that happened right around, the middle of my run with the rock band. And then when the rock band ended, I had a song in mind called Who Am I Without You? And I began to present that to Todd. And so we started our co-writing sessions once a week on a Friday, just an hour or two. And I paid him like $40 an hour, just what I did for my drum lessons. And by the end of 2009, I had a whole album's worth of material written with him that was customized to me and my own beliefs and God. And that's where I really found my outlet for who I am as a person, not just who I am as a musician. And much like James Taylor speaks about how he kind of wrote himself, I feel, into the world. His writing gave him a place in the world. That's how I felt as a musician, so young, 22, coming out with my first album. I wrote my way into the world with Todd's help, and for that I'm so grateful. And so again, I continue to drum and play for people, but at the same time, I was growing as a concert artist and finding out who I was in front of crowds and
Right.
And I'm Catholic, Paul. So the cool thing about the Catholic Church is that the Catholic Church is connected worldwide. So I'm able to gig in Rhode Island, but then I can take that same message that I started out with in Rhode Island, and I can go take it to Pennsylvania. I can take it to where I had my first national gig. I was invited to play there, and they were like,
Very cool.
We love your message. It flows with ours, So that was one of my first national gigs. Then Ohio, playing in Ohio, and
Right.
and it just started to bloom and grow. And at this point, I've played in Poland and Panama. Done some international travel. Played in New York, most of the region. But to be honest with you, Paul, when you really go to put a band together, and you're looking for the best of the best players, and you need that Christian energy behind you, and you seek to be on the road full time, or you seek to grow that, you have to move, especially as a Christian artist, I think, to Nashville to get to that next point. And that's what I was ready for, last fall. Once my friend, suggested that I move to Nashville, I was like, I'm game. Like, I'm ready. Even though I'm a father and husband, a father of triplets, I'm like, let's go. Let's move the family. We have to do this.
Right.
Especially, I think, looking back, I didn't go to Miami. I had the potential to go. I was chosen to go, but I didn't go. And so it's always been a thing of me, with me. I've always known that I've had to get out of Rhode Island to make it. But what's so ironic is that when I was ready to go, COVID-19 struck. And so now again, it's this whole thing of I think God is simply saying don't worry about making it, just do the work in front of you, build your brand, do what you need to do. And when you go down to Nashville, maybe you won't be going down as somebody, especially if touring, Paul, if touring is not going to happen till the fall of 2021,
right.
that gives me more than a year to work on my voice, to work on a new album, to just do all that, because as a drummer, there's not much. As a drum teacher, there's stuff I can do, and as a session musician, there's stuff I can do, but the live thing is what I was really looking forward to as a drummer. Now that that's not there, it's more about growing the artist brand,
Right. I think you're right. It's, and everyone's kind of getting tired of the cliche words of the new norms and things, but I think you're right, is everyone's got to figure out what the world is like now going forward, or what it might be. It's nothing's just like we said about the music industry. It's not like it used to be. There's always change. And so whether new norm is not a good thing to say, new norms happen all the time, right? And I think what I find very, really, I'm trying to look for the right word here, Ryan, is not encouraging, but really, I feel, you're very, it's about everything that your vision on goes back obviously to your faith You have your
yeah.
faith in what you're doing. You trust. There's obstacles that's getting thrown in the road here. You're not getting down. Your life was supposed to start, here in 2020, right? End of last year. Big plans for 2020, and then boom, everyone.
Right.
But then now you're trying to figuring everyone out. Those that are, hey, the world's not over yet.
Right.
How do I keep moving like the duck on, the feet moving under the water? You got to keep moving, or Finding Nemo for our Disney fans. You just keep swimming. And I think that's great. I think your positivity is you got it, because right, there's so much negativity right now. And unfortunately is always around. And if you get dwelling on that stuff, it just drags you down, tires you out. And but you're right. It's how do you find your new things? How do you find you keep moving, going, okay, maybe I have to wait, but let's make this time productive now. And I think the hopefully, and I was going to say it, the joke or the running, meme, I think somewhere on Facebook about musicians is, hey, once everyone comes out of their houses and we're allowed to go out and allowed to go to gatherings, to listen to music, whether it's at a church or whether it's a bar or whether it's an arena, wherever it may be. Let's see day one or week one of live music again. I hate to say it may not be very good, because once they open places back up, unless you've been really practicing and you're tight when you left, and now because most bands probably aren't practicing together, right? There's a lot of online stuff, but again, we know right now there's a 20-second delay between, through the internet and so forth. It's a little challenging, but I think no, but I really appreciate, I think I find it very refreshing, Ryan, is that you've got, really a very positive outlook on a lot of things and what you believe and so forth. So you talked a little bit about your music there. You talked about how you started your recording process. So talk about a little bit about your music, your writing influences, how you come up with some of your music, and then, how many EPs and releases do you have?
Yeah, well, thank you, Paul. I, started, like I said, with my first record back in 2010. I started writing it with that original song, Who Am I Without You, at the end of 2008, finished the rest of the writing process in 2009, and it was released August of 2010. I then came out with the single because I felt like I wanted to be a family man. I was like, well, if I'm going to be a family man, I'm going to have to ask someone to marry me at some point. So I said, why don't I write a song called Will You Marry Me, an engagement tune? And I'm sort of making this story seem a little better than it is. I was actually with a girl at the time whose parents, I asked permission, and her parents said, no, not right now. We don't want our daughter basically to be married to a starving artist. So I was
Sorry,
like,
I don't mean to laugh. I mean, right? Yeah.
Oh no,
it was right.
It was an absolute blessing, because I just think about how awful my life would have been now in hindsight if we did get married.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that would have been horrible. But I knew her parents couldn't stop my singing and songwriting career, so I wrote a song called Will You Marry Me with my producer Todd, and it's a sweet song. I actually played it at St. Patrick's Cathedral in 2018 in front of 3,000 people who were having their wedding vows renewed. It was the Golden Jubilee anniversary Mass. And so again, so much good can come out of, just crappy situations or what you think are crappy situations at the time,
right.
But again, a blessing. To use the Rascal Flatts, title, God Bless the Broken Road, And certainly, but yeah, so here's the funny thing. Here's a lesson, I think, just in general, and you've probably experienced this, Paul. When you let go of stuff that isn't meant for you, it leaves room for the good stuff to kind of fill up your world. And after I finally decided to, just get away from that girl that I was with before, 2 months later, my now wife, Elizabeth, who is just like an angel walking the earth. She's, I don't know how I got so lucky, but she's a speech pathologist, and she's also a great singer. And her and I met at a young adult mass, and so we got married, and doctors told us we had a 1% to 2% chance of having kids, and they were wrong because we we had triplets. But here's the thing, and again, long story, sorry, but when Liz became pregnant with the triplets, we went to the hospital, of course, and while the boys were in the NICU because they were born prematurely, I met my now producer, Rich Spielberg, who happens to work for Josh Groban, Ringo Starr, Bruce Springsteen, and David Foster. He had just had twins at the time that we had our triplets. And I saw him in the NICU, and I said, "Hey, man, you look like a musician." He said, "I am. How did you know?" I said, "I don't know. You just have that look to you." And so we exchanged numbers, and he actually became the gentleman who produced my EP called Trust that was released in 2018. And Dave DeCenzo actually plays drums on that. And then I play drums on it as well. Dave is just a monster, and it's been cool because he teaches at Berkeley, and I took a couple of lessons with him as well. I'm like, what the heck? He's on my EP. I know him now. Like, I want to take my drumming to that next level, So I've been studying with Dave and enjoying that. And but yeah, so that EP came out in 2018, and then Rich and I worked on another EP, Oh Holy Night and Holy Nights Live, and that came out in at the end of last year, 2019. And now I'm writing a new song that I'm going to have. I've already talked to Jim Riley about it, Paul. I'm going to have Jim play drums on it and sort of handpick the musicians in Nashville who he would like to have, play on it. And it's a song called Newport to Nashville. So it's sort of my anthem for moving from this part of the world to Music City. Right. And then I hope to write maybe another EP or another whole album in the next year, in the time that I have now because of COVID-19. So it's sort of like, past, present, and future. Right. And without live gigs taking place, it's up to me to just really dig into my online presence as a musician and be posting a lot every day, at least 4 times a day, maybe boosting posts. These are some strategies that I'm learning now with online marketing. If anybody's interested, Paul, my go-to resource for online marketing is Leah McHenry. And she has an academy called the Savvy Musician Academy, SAVVY Musician Academy, Savvy Musician Academy. And her name, the founder of it is Leah McHenry, LEAHMCHENRY. And as an artist, she goes by the name of Leah. She's actually a female a Celtic metal singer, and she does not tour at all. She is an online musician, and she makes 6 figures just doing that between her Savvy business and her artist business. And she's a stay-at-home mother of 5. And so now that everybody's forced to basically be in Leah's situation for the most part of like being at home, being home with the kids, having to educate them, and then grow the brand, she's just like the #1 resource, in my opinion, right now. If you want to see it demonstrated on both an artist level and an academy level, she's like Jim Riley. She's got the academy, but then she's out living it too. And to me, I find that really helpful. I have listened to stuff from Grant Cardone and Gary Vee, but what I find is that she's able to take all those principles, like you mentioned, like the hustle factor. She's able to take all those things and put it into musical language so we as musicians can really understand how to build our culture, build our brand. And so I'm just excited to dig into that stuff and see that go, which will also help, album sales. And then
Right.
Maybe I could do a fundraiser for Newport to Nashville as well as I write more songs, like a crowdfunding sort of deal,
I think that's an interesting, because you're right. I mean, to be able to do some of these things in a creative way, let's say as a musician, as one of the arts, and to have still have a music career.
Yeah.
Like we said, there's a lot of folks that, hey, they might not necessarily be, their creative projects musically may not be there yet, but you're still, maybe a person may still be full-time in music, whether it's a music teacher or or something that I thought was like awesome, was like, man, if I ever came back, in my second life was when I went to the Country Music Hall of Fame, and there was a lady doing the tours and some of those folks, and I'm like, that'd be a cool job, but because you're still in music, right? But to be able to do something like where you're to have a home life, and you're still, and you're making money from it, you're providing for your family, I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I think that's a great tip, Ryan, is because I think there's a lot of folks that are trying to, this is the new medium, social media. Everyone's connected. You've got to get yourself out there, share. I really hate to admit this. Since I really started the first episode, this will be podcast episode 5, I think.
Oh, sweet.
I'm losing track, I think. But I unfortunately hate to admit the fact that over the past month, because there's been a lot of hecticness, I haven't really played the drums, right? Some of it I just, again, being able to jam with other people, because we're not there, and this is taking more of my, creativity time, is the podcast and the content creations and things like that. So no, that's a great tip. I'll definitely pass it along. If there's any links that we can probably provide later in the post social media stuff, that'd be awesome. So
cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Leah and the great work she does there is keeping me motivated and on a daily schedule, because I think my dream of wanting to play in the arenas and the stadiums hasn't changed. I still want to do that. The difference is that now I'm thinking of it as, well, imagine if I could headline as opposed to just be the drummer for. I definitely, it's sort of like the Phil Collins life.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's something that, as long as I think stay up on all of the skills daily, like the drumming, like the singing, like the songwriting, and continue to network, then that's definitely possible. Again, I think getting to Nashville is what's going to be the thing for me when it comes to finding a band of like-minded musicians who are young and want to hit the road. Maybe they're in their 20s, 30s. I think when I was talking to Rich Redmond, he recommended like anybody in their mid-20s to 40s. Like that would be a perfect age range for someone like me if I'm going to put together a band. And so, going down there, it just, that's what sort of the daily schedule that Leah recommends. It's sort of that, along with working out, that sort of keeps me positive and hopeful that I'm becoming the person that I want to become at the end of this all. And as I did take a private lesson with Jim, Paul, and he said, because I was asking him some technology questions about how to get the drum kit set up and everything working the way it is. And he said, I hope people don't forget about the opportunities that we're now entering into. Like once we're back to normal and everything's, moving and shaking, I hope we can still teach online maybe as much as we are, or still collaborate with people like as much as we are. If anything,
right,
for the creative mind, this should be opening up a lot of possibilities. And I think, I think it's great. And it's and of course the faith, sort of
Right.
opening all this up to God each step of the way. That helps too, because I'm not
Yeah.
actually, none of us are doing it on our own,
Yeah. No, obviously there's those that see that there's a purpose and a higher, so
Yeah.
No, that's some interesting. Obviously, like you said, you draw the inspiration on some of those things you talked about. The song "Will You Marry Me?"
Yeah.
Things, and obviously some of your, having being a father now, and a husband and life and family. There's a whole, those things that draws into your creativity for songwriting. And again, that's great. I can't wait to hear that process there for that song there. The new one you're going to work with Jim on. So,
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. We'll maybe switch things up a little bit. And,
Sure.
So I think I'm going to ask you this, and then this will lead into the thing that's behind you there. So how many kits do you have? What's your main kit? And anything, I know there's a lot of the tech gear heads and things like that. So,
Sure.
What do you got? Let's hear it. So what's your heart?
Yeah.
What you working with?
Yeah. So right now I have Sabian cymbals, which I love very much. I just like Jim, I want to remain a Sabian guy throughout my career. I just love their products. They've been with me since the beginning. My dad and I picked these cymbals out together back when I was, I think in high school or even earlier than that. So, but it's a 14-inch hi-hat, 16-inch ride, 20 or 21-inch ride here. Sorry, 16-inch crash, 21-inch ride. And then this is actually a 15-inch crash, which before I go to Nashville, I'm going to have to invest in bigger cymbals because everything is bigger in Nashville, which leads me to my next point. I have a Tama Star Classic kit right here. I got this back when I was like in 9th grade. So it's a little bit older, but again, Tama makes great drums. They sound great. It's a 10, 12, 14, and I also have an 8-inch tom as well. The bass drum is only a 20. So as Jim mentioned at the camp, he's like, "How tall are you, Ryan?" I'm like, 6'3". He's like, I think you could use a 24-inch bass drum." So I can't wait to get my hands on. I'm actually willing to trade all of this in for a Ludwig Classic Maple kit that's, bigger sizes. So that's my hope to do that, rather soon. We'll see how COVID-19 affects all that. I'm not a fan of bringing in new packages into the home right now unless they're 100% necessary. Yeah. But right. We'll see how that all pans out. This is a 14, I believe, by 6.5 or 5.5 Ludwig Supraphonic snare drum. So at least this one drum right here, the Ludwig represents my hopeful future in terms of the drums that I really want to play. I'm sort of modeling everything after Jim, unabashedly, just because I love Ludwig. I love Dave DiCenzo plays Ludwig, Ringo plays Ludwig. I mean, it's just so many guys that I look up to. Yeah, so many guys who I look up to. Bonham, right? I mean, just that Ludwig sound is so classic. I do have Tama hardware, Iron Cobra right now. All of this is Tama hardware. And the double pedal I have right here is the Speed Cobra. The drums you do not see that I have are a Magstar custom kit, and the sizes are kind of odd on that. I have an 18 by 18 kick, 10 by 8 tom, rack tom, and a 14 by 16 floor. And then the Steve Jordan size snare, which to me, it's not odd. I love it. It's a 13 by 6.5. So that thing sounds great. I also have some breakbeats kits, Ludwig breakbeats that I use for jazz. I actually had a drum tech for Carl Allen one evening, and I used the Ludwig breakbeats kit with Remo heads and tuned them up nicely for him, and he loved it. And so I've just kept that kit basically tuned that way for whenever I get called or did get called to do a jazz gig, prior to COVID-19. And then I have, I actually have some smaller travel kits as well, like the Pearl, what is it? The Pearl Midtown kit, which in Rhode Island, it was funny, like, because, or it is funny, like I was getting called to play at places where a kit like this would be too big.
Right.
And they're just like, okay, here's $100 for the gig tonight. There's your place to set up. And I'd be like, okay, that's just not a lot of room. But whatever. So I just started to actually downsize my drums a little bit. Just, and honestly, that was a sign that, like, I had to move away from the area, because when your career is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and you have big dreams, it's like we spent time with Jim, right, that weekend, and he's like, you need bigger drums, man. Like, if you're coming here, you need bigger. Like, it needs to. So it's just, it's that whole thing of just, moving away from the comfort zone of maybe what might be required locally as a locally gigging musician to what would be required if you were in the arena, if you were in the studio, and the gear is such an important part of that. So right now I have Evans heads on these drums. I think they sound great. The UV ones all the way around in the EMAD. But I'm interested, again, in Remo as well, in the future. And I think as far as a gear rundown, that might be it. I'm using the Kenny Arnoff Vic Firth signature sticks, which for a taller guy, these give you that extra half-inch, 16.5, 16 and a half is the length on these, and they give you plenty of meat, to really hit harder, because in Nashville, again, they're hitting hard down there, and it just, it feels great. So that's the stick I've been using. I'm also
what type of tip is that? What's the tip?
I'm not sure what size the tip is. I think this is like a 5B, maybe like an extreme 5B shaft, and maybe a comparable tip to that. But I ordered these from Sweetwater. So Sweetwater has all the specs on the Kenny Arnoff sticks, which is awesome. And then Innovative Percussion is another line that I've been checking out, because a lot of the Nashville guys, including Chris McHugh, Jim Riley, and Seth Rausch, and the drummer for Taylor Swift, his name is going to slip my mind right now, but it won't once I'm down there, because I'm sure, be a household name. It already is. But I mean, I think it's Matt. But I'm gonna butcher his last name, but check him out. I'm interested in checking his sticks out too. So yeah, it's just, I'm so glad, Paul, that I took the trip to Nashville prior to COVID-19, because I feel like I'm a part of that community already, and it gives me something to shoot for, and dream about along, with the gear and all that stuff. Like, I feel like if I hadn't gone to Nashville, I would just be playing on what I'm playing with and not thinking as much about it. But when you really get into that culture of what's required down there, you think about gear more, you think about all those things, and it's great.
It's definitely interesting, and the story about most of those places have their kits maintained, and you walk in with a few things, and you're playing for 4 hours. You've got your pedals, your throne, maybe your snare, a few things, but you're not lugging a whole kit in there every night. So
right.
There's some benefits to it. Again, you might not be. Most house kits everywhere else in the world looks nothing like the house kits in Nashville.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, on Lower Broadway. That's right. All the kits are already there. I think you have to bring your own throne and cymbals and sticks. But other than that, it's really great. I mean, I say I can't wait. We'll see, where I am as an artist, as a front man by the time COVID-19 ends, but or this season of social distancing ends. But I just can't wait to just go and
Right.
start playing in those clubs and just, like, you just gotta, when you listen to Jim, when you listen to Rich Redmond, and you listen to their stories, you hear about how important playing in those clubs were, and
Right.
how those larger gigs came from actually being in those clubs. So the fact that I don't have to take a drum set in to those clubs, just walk in and play, like, it's the
Right.
it's the Walt Disney World for musicians. If you're
Right.
if you're into it, if you're really into
Oh,
it, it's the
for
place to
sure.
go.
So, all right. So you got the kit there. No pressure.
Yeah.
You want to lay some stuff down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever you got.
Sure thing. Do you want me to play along to a track, or do you want me to do a drum solo?
Your call. Whatever you feel most comfortable with.
Cool. Let me go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and do one of Jim's tunes, the syncopated pop rock track.
Okay.
And then if you want me to take a solo after that, I can. But I'll start with some music first.
Yeah, if you want to do that, if you want to play to the track and then go right into a little bit of soloing.
Cool.
All right. And I'm going to go ahead and mute.
I'm gonna put on my trusty cans here. Actually, for some reason, yeah, the cans aren't sending me the signal, so I'm gonna go ahead and stick with the in-ears.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, here we go.
One, two, three.
and on to the next track it goes.
Yeah. That was from the book, right?
That's
Was that
right.
one of-
It's appropriately titled for times like this that we're in, The Survival Guide.
That's
And
right.
The Survival Guide for the Modern Drummer. And it's so good because, I mean, in times when we can't even play with with anybody, Jim has given us like the perfect band in every genre possible, and it doesn't have a drummer. So it's up to us to just learn and grow as musicians. And again, you know, there were some things in my performance just there which I'll be able to, you know, review here on this live stream, just like Tom Brady does his footage. And speaking of
Yeah, that's right.
speaking of
No,
which,
yeah.
you guys got them. I'm jealous. You guys
That's
have them.
right.
But
Yeah.
it won't matter because, you know, I'll be leaving New England anyway. But I think that God willing, but yeah, I mean, I think you know, there are things even in that performance, and that's exactly what Jim would want us to do, right? Listen back to ourselves, review ourselves, just, you know, become better drummers every day, and so Jim, I mean, just he is the drum dojo, you know, just you know, just bow to him, and he's.
What do we say? Right, he's the sensei, right?
That's right. That's right. I mean, he's given us so many great things to work with in every genre. So,
Yeah.
so my hope, and I don't know, I don't think it's too lofty as long as I just, you know, sort of, you know, stay committed here. But what I'd love to do is play through. This is my own personal goal with this book, is to, right now I'm transcribing track 1 of this book as Jim played it on Drumeo. So that way I don't have to so much guess, even though he gives us the beats in the book as to, you know, what exactly to play for each track. Once he plays it, it takes on a different life of its own. You know what I mean? And,
Right.
and that's sort of what I want to use as the record, is like, you know, his ideas, and I want to learn how he does it, how he customizes it. I want to imitate that and bring my own thing to it, and then record. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if by the end of COVID-19 I could have recorded the whole entire book on drums and then be like, oh, you want to hear what it sounds like to play when I play a rock, or you want me to hear what it sounds like when I play this? Like, he's given us the survival guide, like the resume.
Yep.
of all you have
Right.
to do is just put the time in. And so in addition to maybe a new album, I'd love just to stay busy as a drummer doing this, and that way I'm polished in all the styles, and also just yeah, I've documented it, so that way it could again be an online resume. Because right now, if you look, when you search my name, for all the drumming I've done, for all the artists I've played for, I haven't always, you know, been the best at promoting myself, and to a certain, I can't blame anybody for that, but I will say that you aren't always encouraged at a university level, at a college level, to brand yourself and to become the best marketer. In some ways, sometimes it can almost even be looked down upon, depending on who you're studying with.
Yeah.
And so I would say I have to kind of make up for some lost time in a sense there, and now demonstrate at 32 years old proficiency in all this sort of stuff. That way, if people are looking, they can you know, they can find some high quality stuff beyond the recordings that I've done,
Right.
but like just straight drumming stuff, you know?
No, I think that's a great point, because there is you know, obviously different people got different personality, or people got different personalities, and some are very natural with that, you know, branding, and kind of some require that they have to work at it a little harder, and it's you know, as you're relating it to, as a musician, the branding aspect,
Yeah.
you know, especially
Yeah.
as a solo artist, or that. There's
Yeah.
now, even in corporate America, you know, there's a lot of career advice now about people, you know, even if they work in a company, they need to create their own brand and who they are, and whether it's to get them the next jobs or opportunities and so forth. So it's hard to not come off braggart, you know, but at the same
Yes.
time, you know, you do want to, you know, kind of show, you know, so it's a fine line. And but to your point, yeah, it's like, yeah, nobody's teaching music, you know, your musicians are focused on how do I be the best musician, the best this and this, but it's like, you know, they don't teach you how to use a fax machine and a copy machine in college, you know, when you go to school. So
It's true. It's funny, you know, because I think like in some ways I'm grateful for the fact that I had that time and studied with the people I studied with, because they taught me how to be. They taught me how to be and to focus on the music, right? And you can tell like Jim and Rich Redmond when they speak about their experience at Texas or anybody. It is, you know, Mark Poise speaking about his experience at Miami. It is about digging in, and that's important at that time. But then I think as you graduate and you go into the world, you find out just how important the business and marketing point is. So I think it's I think in 10 years from now, if colleges are still looked at as much of an important thing to pursue, especially with the season we're in right now, which is forcing us to go into this social distancing, remote learning, colleges will have to acknowledge this aspect. It's reality, you know, that is now an outdated thing, I think,
Right.
to offer a program that doesn't cover that. We need to be teaching people how to be better, you know, online musicians, in addition to actually having to play the instrument. So I think that's what college curriculums can and should look like in the future. You know, serious study offline and serious study online. And but no, I mean, I'm grateful for the fact that, you know, I am the musician I am today because of the education I've had, or just persistence, and then
Right.
and then just now taking that more thorough approach. A lot of it is common sense, I think. Right? Like, how do you, if you want to show yourself mastering something, then imitate the masters first. Do your best to imitate them, and then demonstrate that, maybe. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so that's
Right.
my whole concept of this book, and you know, just trying to build my brand through it. And the cool thing is Jim encourages us, even though this book was written in 2015. Jim has always been ahead of the curve. You know, I mean, he's saying in the front of this book, make YouTube videos. I want you to do that. I want you
Right.
to use this book as a way to express yourself and your brand. And so yeah, it's definitely, if anybody's looking for material, I'd highly recommend all of Jim's books. I think he has 2 out presently. He's working on the 3rd book, but this one here is something I would, especially during these times, the survival guide.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
know,
Survival guide. Yeah.
with Nashville's best.
So, so I know, and maybe I'll kind of ask you this and leave it as however you want to go with it. Is how was that experience? You auditioned for AGT? Was it Voice?
Oh yeah, America's Got Talent and The Voice.
Yep.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did both of those. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
America's Got Talent was a better experience because they don't let you know if you've made it or not in the room. Having said that, if I had made The Voice and they let me know in the room, it wouldn't have made much of a difference. I would have made it. So it would have been cool. But there's something that is hard, like in the room, hearing, sorry, we're not going to pass. The way they do it is they line you up in The Voice. They put you in a room. You have like 10 seconds to introduce yourself. You sing through your song. They kind of address everybody, and they may pick and choose, and they might say, all 5 of you are going to be here. Congratulations. Or it could be all 5 of you are going to leave. We don't choose any of you. Or they could go through and be like, you and you 3 go home. They're kind about it, but America's Got Talent is way better because you're in a room with like 20 other people who don't just sing, who don't do exactly what you're doing. They're magicians, they're comedians. So like you're sitting down in a room with 20 people, a bunch of different personalities. Like I smile when I talk about the process because I was entertained by different people other than singers as I was waiting to go. And it's just more laid back. You have a little bit more time to introduce yourself. and they don't let you know. It's just positivity as opposed to, I don't know what most audition processes are like. Like if you're gonna audition for like a major label recording artist, I don't know if they let you know in the room right away, or
So you're up there on the stage in front of Simon and whoever else is on the show now, right?
Well, actually, no, because the way they do it is they send producers who, I don't want to say they're nobodies, but they're not known. Like, you don't know their name. Of course, they're somebody, but
Right.
they're no names in terms of the general public. There's no way I could impress you by saying, I auditioned for Harry. You'd be like, who is Harry? Like, I don't know who Harry is,
Yeah, right.
So basically you're in front of producers for the show who have their eye on you, and they're looking for something specific. If they're looking for a 17-year-old male or a 17-year-old female, blonde, petite, has a sob story or has a story of joy, whatever, and you don't fit the bill, that producer will just be like, yeah, it's a casting call. It's like, well, you're not, they don't ask you how many albums you have out. They don't ask you what producer you've worked for or with. They're literally just, kind of.
They're looking for certain, so there's a pre-screening. So
exactly.
Okay. So yeah, exactly. I always, again, it's the movie magic or behind the scenes. I assume the same thing. It was like everybody just comes, walks in, sings their song. Here's my story, in and out, and it's like, okay, so you're pulling back the curtain a little.
yeah, and it's exactly it's all like there's tons of, let's put it this way, there's tons of pre-production that goes into it. And if we use an analogy of like a songwriter. A songwriter doesn't maybe write a song on the spot in front of the band in the studio. Generally, the song is written, then a demo is recorded, then the musicians can listen to the demo and then take it to where it needs to be. A voice contestant is sort of like, you do your best, you go, as you say, pre-screening, and then if you're pre-screened and they like you, they take you and then they make you into, what they want it to be for the show. And even then, there's still no guarantee of what your career is going to be or what's going to happen, and you still may very well have to take a very public blow, and I think that as long as you keep the show in perspective, and think of it as a casting call, and maybe your time, maybe not your time. If you keep it all in perspective, it's fine. Like, I just got an email the other day saying that The Voice is going to be accepting online auditions. So I should, again, just submit a video this time without going through the rigmarole of, being in line and having to be with another group of people, and just, and then maybe I can open up more about my story and say, I am a father of triplets.
There you go.
Like I don't feel like I've been able to open up as much as I've wanted to about some of that excitement. So anyway,
that should be part of your video, right? Is have your boys and your backing band, right? And then while you do your
my drum teacher from college, she was great. He knew that I was going for the audition. He asked how it went, and he said, "Dude, I can't believe they didn't select you." He's like, "You should have gotten in just on your backstory alone. Like, never mind the music, just the story." My wife and I had our marriage blessed by Pope Francis in 2014. So, we've met the Pope when the odds were against us that we weren't going to have kids. He, in a sense, gave us a blessing. We, had triplets. So, and the other aspect of my story is that my sister passed away from breast cancer, and that Trust album is dedicated to my sister. So that project is near and dear to my heart. And I don't mean to use that as a part of my story, but it's just a reality, and it means more to me, actually, her passing as time goes on, because she was only 32 when she passed away, and I'm 32 right now. So it just means a lot more to me as time goes on. So I think my drum teacher, having known about that part of the story too, had said, man, like, you just, so part of it is just, you do have to, like, ideas are great, but then you do have to, at some point, like, demo them, and you have to, like, produce them, right, in such a way that makes it look attractive. So that will be part of my homework if I decide to do that, for the voice. I should.
Right.
Just
Ryan,
everything.
real quick about so you only have, that was the same sister that you talked about that gave you the advice about school?
Yes.
So, wow. Okay. So yeah,
Yes.
it's, I'm sure. Yeah. Very, very, very dear to, obviously, because I think you look back and we're talking about when people make decisions and you look back and the woulda, coulda, shouldas and so forth, but that, looking back to that part, giving that wise advice saying, you go down to Miami, you may never see this nice young Catholic boy again. Go down to Miami, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny because, like, when you're so focused on the music, that's just your priority. You're just like, what do you mean distractions? What do you mean, like, purity? What do you mean? I just want to go and play music. If I'm going to get treated well by the drum teacher down there, if I'm going to, I need to go down there, and then you realize, like, in hindsight, an 18-year-old mind going to Miami, $60,000 in debt for a drum set performance degree, which, by the way, that would have bound me in such a way, to that degree, where if I wanted to open up as a singer and songwriter, like, they could have looked at me with two heads and been like, listen, you're on a drumming scholarship. Like, I'm training you to be a side man. Right. I'm training you to be a side man. You can't just go be a front man. And so perhaps my sister saw the front man in me before I ever found the front man in myself. And just when I was about to, again, go to be a side man, in a sense, in Nashville, this happens. And so what am I forced to work on, in a sense? I mean, let's take a look at it from a practical level. What pays the bills right now? Does being a front man pay the bills right now, or does being a side man pay the bills? I mean, I suppose, as you saw in Nashville, it's important to treat yourself as a front man, even if you're a side man, so that way you have another stream of revenue going on. But yeah, Erica was my only sister, and she wasn't talking about it from a business perspective or anything like that. But I think that she saw those things and was speaking to that, good Catholic boy inside me. And I think it's just kind of funny because Catholicism in and of itself, like, is not popular. It is, but it's not. However, I am totally into pop, and my sound, especially with my last album, is a pop sound. So you have this blending of something that is, I mean, Matt Maher is one of the only artists out there who is sort of as well known as he is in the Christian genre, and sort of still is, a Catholic. Primarily, Catholics are not known for like jumping out of their seats and praising with a tambourine and playing drums and doing all that.
We're a little bit more right. We're a little bit more subdued, right?
Yeah.
Kneel, stand.
It's sort of this odd thing. However, Seth Rausch, the drummer for Keith Urban, he's a devout Catholic, and he actually has a miraculous medal on his drumstick from Innovative Percussion. And I took a lesson with him while I was down there, and we just had a ball talking about drumming and what it's like to play for Keith, and any encouragement he had to me as a player, so it might not be a public thing, but a lot of the strongest drummers and some of the most predominant drummers who I look up to in Nashville have that faith background or Catholic background. So it's, right. I think at the end of the day, I just needed to marinate in it a little more to understand it, to not walk away from it, to appreciate it, and then just go deeper into it, because it's really a beautiful thing. And I would say that defines me first before, I guess, being a drummer or being a musician, or
Right.
that faith has to come
Right.
first.
No.
But it doesn't restrict you maybe as much as you might think it does. To me, I feel like it should open you up to be the most loving, forgiving, universal human that you can be. And sometimes you have to figure out who you are, where you are, always, before you before you jump into the big pond. So for better or for worse, I've sort of been a big fish in a very small pond, the smallest state in the U.S. But what I've been able to gain from my experience here and then take to Nashville has just been amazing. So thank God. I appreciate you mentioning that, Paul. Thank God for Erica's insight. There have been times where I've been changing diapers, times 3 with the boys, and I've been like, I should have went to Miami. The stresses of fatherhood have definitely gotten to me sometimes, and I'm just like, I should have been a drummer. I should have, but you realize as the boys get older, and then there's still hope to move eventually, and just, that it's important not to wish it away. It's who knows what would have happened, and I think my wish for anybody in any industry, not just the music industry, is that they can feel like they are a whole person at the end of the day, because we're asked, what shall it profit a man to gain the world and lose his own soul? And that's a really important question, because in chasing the things of the world, we can lose the most important thing, which is our soul. And I say lose it. I mean, God is with us always, so He's got our back. But I think it's one of those things where if we put the chase of the world, that hustle, before God, then it's easy to prioritize anything else before Him, and He offers us a different path. He says, put me first above all things and watch what happens. And it might even mean that you have to put the drumsticks down and pick up a guitar and start writing songs and doing something you're not comfortable with. But He qualifies the called, and that's something that I think is important. So
very cool.
It's not a conversation that I always get into as deeply, maybe in every level and every conversation, but if somebody's open to it, I certainly am willing to to show people like my experience of the rudiments of the faith, so to speak. How important.
I love. Hey, there you go. That could be your next next EP. There, the rudiments of faith. That's it.
Yes.
You heard it here first, right?
Yes.
So, and I think I may have shared with you, and I'm Catholic as well too.
Yeah, awesome.
So I know it's been probably very different, right? I think just with the again for the most part the world are social people, even though there's introverts, extroverts, and just to see things that, again, we talk about live performances, but then even for folks in religion is, not being able to be around folks to share the faith. Now, again, God is everywhere, so, I know that some people can kind of say, you really need to go to church if you believe in God and in Christ. But yeah, it was just really really weird seeing Easter and on Good Friday and the Pope in Vatican, out there and nobody else is there but him out in I'm drawing a blank here, but just outside St.
Peter's Square.
Out right there, right? Yeah. So and again too, even in going to regular church services, and a lot of them now, a lot of churches now have gone on. A lot of churches have already probably been online, But now
Yeah.
there are a lot of churches now, different religions as well, have moved to that, and it's like, okay, is this the new norm? And
Oh, right.
right, so
Yeah.
places here in West Palm, where I'm at, there's a lot of different services on Sunday mornings. Different Christian churches, and even the Palm Beach diocese, they do a TV show, and it's almost like watching Christmas Mass, right? Is on
Yes.
in Saint oh my God, I'm drawing a blank, in New York.
Oh,
Yeah.
St. Patrick's Cathedral.
Yeah, St. Patrick, right?
Yeah.
They do the big mass there, or
Yeah.
watching the Christmas Mass in the Vatican, at midnight or whatever the time difference is. But yeah, no, that's interesting. But yeah, you're right. I got a little interesting story. So I had attended another, and again, by means, just a disclaimer, I'm just kind of sharing my experience, and I don't mean by anything of it's just my story, right?
No, that's great.
I had attended went to another non-Catholic church, Christian church, and to your point about us Catholics are not familiar with the the energy, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Other church do it,
which has its pros and cons. It's sort of like, to me, the perfect analogy is what we were talking about before, where like you can go to college and you can learn music, and that's great, but at some point you're going to have to market what you do. And the Catholic Church, to me, is like, that's the college. Like, you go to church to focus on your relationship with God, but at some point, and now maybe is the time, they have to focus on like marketing and like being, and I'm talking about at the local level, like, welcoming, collecting email addresses, like updating the technology, getting rhythm sections in the music ministry. Like,
right.
Like, this is great, but at some point you have to connect the dots for the culture, because you're just sitting in the church and you're wondering, where is everybody? Because it's sort of, there's a big disconnect there, and I think it's similar to going to music school for music, but then not learning the marketing, the business aspect of it. Those things have to be connected, and now is a good time for even the church, all churches, to learn how important it is to be connected to their people, not just taking for granted that they'll show up because the church doors are open, but how are we connecting?
And I think there's a part there, is that there's so many folks that are in our current situation that are in need of things. And I think a lot of people forget that the churches, all churches, not just the Catholic churches, provide support and help and so forth. And it's still a lot of folks, when they tithe, they may pass their money in the plate rather than, electronic donations now, et cetera. There's still a need for that, right?
Yes,
and again, depending on everyone's situation changes too. Some folks may not be able to, because their income may have changed. And but yeah, I think there's an instant there, because like you said, locally first, and then think local, then go out the way. I think your analogy about things you can control, right? You worry about things you can control close enough. And those local churches and so forth, they're helping the local community, or rather than we're out here, like everyone has their thoughts about all the money to help small businesses, and questioning why did large corporations get money, and where this really was supposed to be geared for small businesses, right? You had governments trying to solve a problem, but they at federal levels, they're not very precision. But anyway, so I'll kind of move on from that. I guess that thought. So you're performing. How many performances do you do a year? Within, whether you're circuit or playing out. You normally, once a week, or how often?
It's funny, Paul, because My album came out in 2018, my Trust EP, and I started what I deemed the Trust World Tour in right after I did the album release show, and I was probably averaging, I don't know in terms of number. I don't know if I ever thought of it that way, because here's the thing. I've been employed at a church now out of the Archdiocese of Boston, playing 3 masses every Sunday. And so no matter what, I had 3 gigs per week. It was just all on the same day. So my day started very early, driving up to Boston from Rhode Island. I was probably up at 5, on the road by 6, getting there for 7:30, playing the 8 a.m. Mass, 8:30 a.m. Mass, and so I was doing that, and that was great. And then I was doing as many concert events as I could in addition to that on the weekend. So I was at least doing probably 5 or 6 gigs, per week, if you think of everything as a gig.
Right.
And then doing teaching as well. So I think I was always very busy when I could be sort of going out in public. But then I realized that I sort of was able in 2018 to have a good run. 2019 did the International World Youth Day in Panama, stayed out there for a week, and was really able to ride that well for a year. Played at Soul Fest 2019, Southern New England's premier Christian music festival. I'm booked again to do that in August of this year, but who knows if it will happen, or they're planning on it. But we'll see what happens. I think that ultimately I was noticing that my gigging, concert-wise, was starting to go downward, just trending to go downward. Because the amount of places I could play within a year's time, just in this area alone, I don't know, I guess there are a lot of places, but those who I was actually connected to, those who wanted to actually bring me and the band in, the timing has to be right. And honestly, just when my friend recommended that I start going to Nashville, move there, that's when I looked at the calendar and was like, I don't have much on the calendar right now. And it was perfect because I had all the time in the world to prepare to go to Nashville, to go to Rich Redmond's camp, to spend a week out there, to take in as much as I could. I had a few gigs coming back, periodically. And then I went to Jim's camp where we met in December. And so it was this perfect storm of having enough time to go to Nashville, seeing what life would be like there, and then coming back home, doing all the gigs that I had to do. And then I was just looking forward to, literally, I didn't have anything on the calendar after this weekend that was going to make me have to stay in this area. That's why I was so looking forward to just, not that the ministry was drying up, it's just God was calling me to a different area, I feel, so it could grow, so it could expand. Right. So I had a great run, 2018, 2019, into 2020, no complaints, just on the up and up. And now it's just a matter of, capitalizing, because literally the future is unknown, right? I think for everybody. So right now, presently, I'm doing Tuesday night shows, Friday night shows, and Sunday night shows on my Facebook page. And people have been very generous, which is awesome. I haven't charged anybody for those, but especially starting off right out of the gate, people were very generous, and it's been great. So I do like a Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, snail mail, sort of free will offering, virtual free will offering. Right. And
so Ryan, real quick, while you talk about those, I want to give you that opportunity to. Give all your information there, your Venmos and all your virtual tip bucket.
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely.
I know. Because I know that's a tough thing, and I think there was even a few weeks ago when he talked about doing stimulus money, and the governor of Tennessee. Wording is to the residents of or Tennessee, hey, you know, the musicians of Nashville are being hit very hard because that's their livelihood, that's their means, and this is what draws. It's the tourism for Tennessee and Nashville alone, right? Here's all these musicians now, and that you probably just as many as with the connections that they're all been hit hard, right? They're not all
Yeah.
big name musicians that have they're all struggling artist or trying to get there, and this is that. So yeah, I want to give you that opportunity there, for folks that want to kind of check out your stuff or virtual tips. So go ahead, and what you got?
Oh, thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. So my PayPal is paypal.me/Ryan Tremblay1. And my Cash App is cash.app/$Ryan Tremblay. My Venmo is venmo.com/Ryan Tremblay-9, or I think that's a hyphen actually. So venmo.com/Ryan Tremblay-9. My ministry mailing address, in case anybody prefers to send snail mail, which is not the preferred method now, because who wants to go to the post office if they don't have to, right? But I mean, Ryan Tremblay Music, 1151 Aquidneck Avenue, private mailbox number 412, Middletown, Rhode Island, 02842. And if anybody wants to go and purchase any of my CDs, any DVDs, any T-shirts, all of that is available on my online store, ryantremblaymusic.com/store. And there's also a one-time donation feature on my site. So in addition to all the products that you can see on the store, there's the opportunity to go ahead and to just make a one-time donation, which is awesome. People have been utilizing any and all of those options. I've received donations via snail mail, Cash App, Venmo, you name it, PayPal, and the online store. It's been great. So I appreciate that, Paul. Thanks so much. Those are kind of the digital ways, the virtual ways to get to me.
Yeah, no, I know you get that opportunity. So do you have any thing, we kind of start wrapping some things here, is
sure.
Any partnerships that you have, or any endorsements that you make a little coin from, or anything to plug?
Most recently I joined the Sabian Education Network,
okay,
which is great to be a part of that, along with Dom Famularo and many other well-known drummers, Joe Bergamini specifically. Being a Sabian fan, not an endorsee yet, or endorser, or artist, I figured it would be a great step at the very least, since I have Tremblay's Music Academy, to go ahead and get established with the Sabian Education Network. I think that over time, the more videos that I put up and the more I grow the brand as a drummer, and especially if I move to Nashville and I'm able to land a gig, with an artist who's out there, then at that time, through relationships with those companies, I would be able to actually have some endorsements. Again, I really want to follow in Jim's footsteps, because I love Ludwig, I love Sabian, I do love Remo, even though I have Evans on my kit right now. I do love Remo. Those heads always get a nice warm tone and punchy. I think that those companies are sort of on my list. Vic Verth, it would be amazing to work with them. If not Vic, then Innovative Percussion certainly seems to be a great company to work with, because all the guys in Nashville are going there. So these are sort of things that I realize, again, as a younger drummer, you want these things. You dream of these things, but what it comes down to is relationships. And as Jim had told us, you can just go to PASIC or go to NAMM and actually shake the hands of the people who are behind these companies. So I dream of the day when we can all gather again, where I can meet these fine folks and maybe strike up some sort of deal that's beneficial for both parties. And as Jim recommends, though, I think just concentrate on playing great music first, and then those things will follow. So at this point, I don't have any endorsements, but I think, again, part of that has to do with lack of branding and marketing, not lack of talent or ability. So I just need to look at that and say, okay, what can I do to grow my own brand? What can I do to get out there? And certainly the move to Nashville is a big part of that.
Yeah, so I'll just real quick, I'll go ahead, and those that are watching, you see here's Ryan's site to go check out. And go back to the main page there, right? RyanTremblaymusic.com.
Cool, thank you.
And yep, and here's as you mentioned, your store. All right, here's all your. So these are all digital, physical. So you'll have to then, I guess, still ship one through snail mail, right?
I could, if somebody's interested. I usually autograph the physical copies and then, just email individually the digital copies. I have a gift card there as well, and a one-time donation button, and the T-shirt. I also have blue versions of that T-shirt too, although it's not pictured. So if anybody wants blue, they could just specify blue in the message, and I have plenty of those to ship as well.
Very cool. Very cool.
I know I look like a trader there, but I'm really a drummer at heart. He's got a guitar in his hands. What's he doing?
Huh?
I'm a drummer at heart.
Yeah. So maybe I think I think just if you wrap up here, I'll ask Scott here. I know he's been kind of monitoring the feed there. So Scott, anyone's got any questions or anything they want to ask Ryan or myself? You see anything there?
How much are the CDs?
How much are the CDs?
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so the CDs, I believe, are $10 on the website, and then with shipping, I believe the most you would pay is $15.
Okay. So 10 and then 15 that includes shipping and with that. So, and any other?
Just some people saying here that they've met Ryan at various functions and various events, and that they fans.
Are you any shout outs? We got any shout outs there?
Got a shout out from Jeff Resden.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Met Ryan at Jamestown, Rhode Island.
Yes.
Church there.
Awesome. Good to see you, Jeffrey. Thanks so much for tuning in, buddy. Cool.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So, so any you want to lay down some crazy solo here to wrap us up, man? I'll let you go as long as you want.
Okay.
I'm
up for it.
All right.
Yeah, all right. Something like that.
You monster.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. That's what my wife. That's what my wife calls me too. For I don't know if it's for my drumming. It's more because it's more because when the boys get the best of me, when they triple team me, when the triplets get the best of me, she's like, "You're a monster. Stop it. Behave. Be nice." But there's always plenty of incentive now to play drums. Like, there was a moment in time where I just thought, you know, I'm going to be a Christian recording artist, and I'm going to just play my guitar. And especially if you listen to my first album, it's like, it's sort of mellow, more like James Taylor, you know? And if you listen to my latest EP and just, you know, my drumming and how much I love it now, it's like the boys, like having boys, 3 boys, like will bring it out of you. Like, there's no way you're going to go through life with 3 boys and just be like, oh yeah, everything's fine. It's cool. You know, I could just strum along and evangelize and everything's in it. It's like, I need to play some drums, you know, and I think God knew that. He's like, we got to give him 3 kids, and then he'll get back behind the kit, no problem.
That's right. What they say is that God gives you nothing that you can't handle, right? So
it's crazy. It's crazy.
Sure. So Ryan, I appreciate today. You know, I know we had our little technology challenge. You know, I figured that, you know, being a Gen Xer, I could figure this stuff out and growing up around computers
yes.
and stuff. This world is doing Skype meetings and Zoom meetings and WebExes and, you know, keeping social distancing. You know, again, when I had this idea that really kind of been bouncing around prior to the drum dojo. And again, I came to Nashville and I started thinking about these things. And then I came home, and then it's January, and then I started thinking, all right, let me just start doing this. And then the end of February was my first podcast with a buddy of mine, the pilot episode, and started to get things set out. And the idea was sit down and talk music with either with a drummer or a musician. Try some rum, as you probably kept seeing. I was sipping while we were.
I love it. And I'm glad you specify between drummer and musician, because you can't have both. You're either a drummer or you're a musician. You can't choose. You know? So I've been trying to choose my whole life, I guess, apparently, you know, and it's like the drums always pull me back. You're a drummer. Don't try to be a musician.
No. There's a guy that's here. Locally here in the South Florida area, Brad Brock, and he's a singer soloist, but he's got his, and there's a lot of opportunity actually for, you know, singer soloists here in, you know, we have great weather all year round pretty much, right?
I should have went to Miami.
Yeah, there you go, right? But Brad's got this interesting setup where he's got foot pedals, and he plays different, like, kind of little drum things. You know, he's got a kick and snare, and he's moving his feet and kind of keeping, you know, left foot on the, you know, 1 and 3, and the right's on, you know, whatever. And it's like, wow, that's actually. So I'm like, I gotta add him to my list. I'm like, okay, he's kind of percussion. He's kind of got his way in there, right?
Totally.
But yeah, you're no right. But again, I appreciate it, and the idea between, you know, for drums and rums was, you know, to have a great conversation. As I say, the tagline is where the backbeats meet the spirits, and we're, you know, sharing conversation, having a little bit of rum, do a little bit of sampling, and just again, you know, good, you know, stories, information, help, you know, folks promote their products, their brands, their et cetera. And, you know, obviously we're all in this together, so, you know, helping each other out. So
thank you, Paul. Thank you so much.
Again, I appreciate it. So any things you again, I know you mentioned your virtual tip buckets, but anything else to plug? The website, your Facebook pages, YouTube, you know, all that, off the top of your head?
You know, I'm realizing in this world of, you know, now digital marketing, how important email addresses are, and I think that in addition to maybe giving my socials a like and subscribing, I think any sort of email address exchange would be awesome. You can go right to my website, and I think this could be true on the store page.
Here, I'll pull it back up here. Give me a sec. I'll pull it back up.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. There we go.
Awesome. On the definitely when you go to the website itself, but specifically the store page, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there should be a place where you can leave your email address. So as it says, stay connected, subscribe to Ryan's mailing list for updates on tours, blog posts, and more. I don't know that you'll be getting many tour updates, but there's a lot of house concerts going on right now. So,
Yep.
So I'll be touring I'll be coming straight to your home 3 times a week, and I have a bunch of other stuff that I'll be promoting basically through the email list. So thanks so much for signing up, Paul. It's actually great to witness someone signing up because I don't know if I've ever before. So I'm glad it says thank you and not something rude, you know?
Yeah, right. So yeah, it looks like you got all your Facebook, Facebook.com, Ryan Tremblay Music, and your Twitter.
Yep.
R Tremblay Music on Twitter, Instagram, Ryan Tremblay Music, and we got some Spotify. It looks like it's search for Ryan search for you there on Spotify, and then
Yep.
also an Apple on iTunes. That's great. So yeah, for sure we'll post and further the all the links that we'll get out there. And again, for anyone who's listening to hear Drums and Rums, the website drumsandrums.com, and social media, all the same names. Check out the podcast, which we'll be posting this in the next few days. We'll get the audio. Whoever actually still driving the cars at the moment, or wherever they may be, and also on our social media platform. So, but yeah, I appreciate it again, Ryan. Thanks for hanging in with our technical difficulties earlier.
Oh no, it's great. I'm sorry, Paul. I wanted to mention too one last thing.
Yeah.
If you go to Facebook, or even tremblaysmusicacademy.com, that's the site for my lessons. And if anybody's interested in taking a drum lesson, guitar lesson, piano, vocals, if anybody wants to get into songwriting, whatever the case may be, even marketing, if somebody wants to hear more of what I've learned from a marketing background and building a brand, like consultation type stuff, feel free to reach out to me. Yeah, Tremblay's Music Academy. Thanks so much, Paul. There it is. And you can easily get in touch with me. And that's what I love to do between my concerts and promotion of the ministry and my career as a recording artist. I love to give back, and I have a handful of students right now, people of all ages and all abilities. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'd be absolutely thrilled to teach anybody who's listening.
Yeah, you got it. And maybe I'd like to have you back on, for future shows and podcasts. Sure. And then definitely want to keep track of you on this new concept from Providence. Is it from New Providence to Nashville, or is it Providence? Providence?
Newport to Nashville.
Hearing from that. So all right, Ryan, thanks.
Awesome.
Have a great rest of the day.
All right, you too, Paul. Thank you so much, brother.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, peace.
See you. Bye.